Creepiest things kids have ever said. A man's mother passed away in a car accident when he was 6. When his 2-year-old daughter saw a picture of her grandmother for the first time, she laughed. He asked what was so funny, and she looked at him and said, "That's my special friend who sings to me." A man's 3-year-old daughter stood next to her newborn brother and looked at him for a while, then turned back to her dad and said, "Daddy, it's a monster. We should bury it." A woman and her 4-year-old son were waiting for their food at Panera. The son started rubbing her belly and talking to it. She asked what he was doing, and he said that he was talking to the baby. She informed him that she was not pregnant, and then he said, "There is a baby in your belly. I just saw it crawl across the floor and climb up into you." A woman's 5-year-old asked her when he was going to be 23 years old. She told him in 18 years. He replied, "Well, I hope I don't die again, because that's how old I was last time I went to heaven." A family moved into a new furnished apartment with an unsettling painting in one of the bedrooms that looked like hair free-flowing in the air. The 2-year-old son was being settled in for his daily nap when he suddenly said he didn't want to sleep in that room. Mom asked why, and he said, "The painting looks at me and tries to talk to me." A woman drove past a cemetery with her 3-year-old daughter in the back seat every day. The 3-year-old would tell her the people in there would wave to her. This went on for a while until the woman stopped driving past the cemetery forever when the daughter said a lady in there wanted her to come in. A 4-year-old girl would spend every day with her great-grandmother, and every time she went home, she would say, "God be with you." One time when she was leaving, she said, "Go with God." Her mom tried to correct her, but she said it again. That night, her great-grandmother passed away. A woman's 3-year-old son was softly singing while he was coloring. She had never heard the song before, and she asked him where he'd learned it. He said, "The lady in my bedroom sang it to me." A woman's mother was babysitting her daughter while she was at a doctor's appointment. The daughter said, "Oh no, Grandma, Mama's not coming anymore today. She was in a bad accident." The mother had been in an accident that almost killed her, and none of the family had yet to be notified. A woman was sound asleep when she was awoken by her 4-year-old in the middle of the night. She looked right into her eyes and whispered, "I want to peel all your skin off." The woman had been sunburned recently and was starting to peel, but it's still absolutely terrifying. A family was driving down a dark, snowy highway late one evening. The son, who was 4 years old, was in the back seat when he suddenly covered his face with a blanket and announced loudly, "I don't want to get glass on my face." A few moments later, 2 cars in front of them crashed into each other, spinning out of control. Fortunately, the family avoided the incident and glass in their face. A woman's young daughter once asked if she could share her breakfast in bed with a dead baby in her closet. The mom thought she meant one of her dolls, so she went to pull one out. Until the daughter quickly said, "No, not a doll, the dead one that sleeps on the closet floor at night." A mom found her 4-year-old daughter in the bathroom with all of her Barbies, making them float face down in the bathtub. When Mom asked what she was doing, she replied, "The man in the wardrobe told me if I didn't do it, it would be my turn to swim face down." A family had a cat that had stillborn kittens. The 3-year-old son asked if they could make crosses for them. As he was making them, he asked his dad, "Aren't those too small?" "What do you mean?" And he said, "Aren't we going to nail them to them?" Dad, after several moments of silence, said, We're not gonna do that." Creepiest things kids have ever said. After a grandfather passed away, the family gathered at his home for a memorial. The 4-year-old grandson suddenly looked up and said, "Why is Grandpa sitting on the roof?" No one else saw anything, but he insisted. "He's waving and telling me it's a fun place up there." On Halloween night, a father asked his 3-year-old daughter about her costume. She was dressed as something he didn't recognize. When he asked who she was, she said, "I'm the girl who hides under your bed." While driving with her 5-year-old son, he unexpectedly murmured, "We should take a different route, Mom." Curious, she inquired why. He responded with an ominous, "Something bad is about to happen." Slightly unnerved and choosing to humor him, she diverted her course. Later, she learned of a devastating multi-car pileup on their original path precisely at the time they would have been there. As the family was moving into an old house, the 4-year-old son pointed at the wallpaper in his new room and said, "The boy in the walls is scared. He said they never found him." Later, while renovating, the family discovered a skeleton of a young boy in the walls of his bedroom. In a serene neighborhood, every night a woman's 3-year-old son would wave out the window before going to bed. When she asked who he was waving to, he mentioned, "The floating man with the lantern." Even more terrifying, the local legends say that the man with the lantern isn't really a man at all, but a ghostly father desperately searching every night for his lost child. A family was camping in the woods. As they sat around the fire, the 6-year-old daughter stared into the forest and whispered, "She's calling me." Her parents asked who she meant. The daughter replied, "The woman in white. She lost her children and says she needs me to help her find them." A family was watching old home videos. The 4-year-old stared intently at a clip of his great-grandfather, who had died before he was born. "Why is he on the TV?" the boy asked. "I just played with him in my room." A family adopted a stray dog. Their 5-year-old daughter often whispered to the dog. When asked what she was saying, she replied, "He's telling me about the time he watched over me, before he died, and before I came to you." As a mother was tucking her 5-year-old daughter into bed, the girl said, "I love this life, Mommy. The last one ended too soon." The mother, puzzled, asked what she meant. The girl responded, "The fire was so warm, but then it was very dark." A woman's 3-year-old nephew looked at her and said, "Last time I was a grown-up, and you were my little boy." When she asked him what he meant, he said, "Remember, the big wave took us." During a stormy night, a boy told his mother, "The man in the corner doesn't like thunder." When the mother asked which man, the boy pointed to an empty corner and said, "The one who's crying." At a family dinner, a 6-year-old suddenly said, "We should be nice to him because he's going to be with us for a long time." When asked who she was talking about, she replied, "The shadow man who follows Daddy." Creepiest things kids have ever said. A young girl with a haunting gaze pointed to a tree outside of her house. Her voice carried an unsettling tone as she announced, "That tree is going to die." But the next morning, their hearts sank with dread when they discovered the fallen tree had crushed their car. In the midst of a conversation about ghosts and monsters, a 2-year-old daughter's innocent eyes turned chillingly serious. Her small voice cut through the air as she declared, "Daddy, I'm not scared of ghosts." Her father, taken aback, questioned her, "Why not?" "Because the one that comes into my room at night and strokes my hair is a nice one." A 5-year-old girl approached her mother, her eyes filled with fear. "Mommy, please get rid of 2 of my Barbies," she pleaded urgently. Intrigued by her daughter's request, the mother asked, "Why, my dear, what's wrong?" The child's voice then quivered as she confessed, "Those 2 Barbies, they watch me. Their eyes follow me everywhere, even when I'm not looking. It feels like they're alive." Tears cascaded down the face of a 6-year-old girl as she arrived home from school. Through her choked sobs, she managed to whisper, "I miss my other family." Her mother, sensing a hidden darkness, asked cautiously, "What do you mean, darling?" Then, with a haunted expression, the girl revealed, "My robot family, they live in the sky, but I was mad at them, and I left them. But now I want to go back. I want to go back to their big, shiny home." A mother's joy turned to unease as she witnessed her 3-year-old daughter cradling her baby brother. The room fell into an unsettling silence when the innocent voice broke it with a disturbing question. "So I shouldn't throw him in the fire, right?" Seeking relaxation, a family retreated to their beach house for a much-needed break. Yet, every night their 4-year-old daughter would silhouette the moonlight sea, her wide, entranced eyes fixated on something unseen in the water. She claimed to have conversed with the lady in the water, her voice trembling with a strange mix of awe and fear. As she described the lady as all wet and sad, looking for her baby. The family's stomachs then dropped upon learning that a mother had indeed drowned there. On stormy nights, a 5-year-old boy would seek comfort in his parents' bed, with his trembling voice a mere whisper. As the lightning flickered, he confessed in hushed tones, "When the lights go off, they come out. They walk around the house. They really like the dark." As the 3-year-old girl was being tucked into bed, her innocent request pierced the silence. "Mommy, please leave the closet door open," she pleaded. Her voice quivered as she added, "My old family needs to come in and visit me at night." The mother's blood then ran cold as she probed further, and the child then revealed the tragic fate of her previous family, a fire claiming their lives. The closet door remained securely shut. In an old colonial house, a 4-year-old boy's innocent play took a chilling turn. The attic was his sanctuary, where he spent hours alone, engaged in animated conversations and unsettling laughter. So much laughter. When the boy was questioned about the laughter, he whispered, "It's not me. It's the laughing man, and he despises grown-ups." Despite then immediately sealing off the attic, the faint echoes of laughter only persisted. A 4-year-old girl's innocent chatter in the depths of the night sent shivers down her family's spine. "It's the lady in white. She used to live here until she died." Their mother's blood turned to ice as she uncovered the chilling truth that their new home had been erected upon the site of a former nursing home, where a tormented nurse had met her tragic end. So to appease the restless spirit, the girl's bedroom door remained ajar, an open invitation to the other side. Ah, that's a good idea. In a solemn visit to a historic graveyard, a father and his young son bore witness to an unsettling revelation. Pointing to an unassuming grave, the 3-year-old boy uttered the words that chilled his father's bones. "That's where I was buried, abandoned by my old family." And it marked the last time they would ever set foot in that cemetery.
Creepiest things kids have ever said. In their new Victorian home, a family discovered an old ballet music box in the attic. Each night, their 5-year-old would play its tune, whispering to themselves, "She don't like when you look." One late evening, after hearing a faint lullaby song from the box, the parents quietly approached the bedroom door. But the instant they peeked in, the music box's dancer plummeted from mid-air, crashing to the ground with their daughter remaining peacefully asleep across the room. While camping in a tent near the lake's edge, a father awoke from a haunting dream of a ghostly woman trying to pull his son into the water. Now shaken, he emerges from the tent, only to find his 4-year-old son staring intently at the moonlit lake. Drawing closer, the boy turned and said in his innocent voice, "The lake lady's lonely, Daddy. She wants me with her." 5-year-old twin girls often spoke to their parents about the bright realm, a place of endless daylight and golden trees. They'd say in unison while holding hands, "We chose to be together, here, before we were born." Tragically, one twin passed away, but the surviving sister still seemed to have her playmate. She'd frequently be overheard speaking as if her sister were present. And when asked about it, she'd softly reply, "She's still with me. She says the bright realm misses her, but she's not ready to leave me." After purchasing an old teddy bear for her daughter at a garage sale, a mother noticed it often moving to face a different direction in the room. Her 6-year-old daughter would also often cling to it, saying, "Teddy keeps me safe, Mama. He says I'm his baby bear." The mom just chalked this up to her child's big imagination and moved on with her life. Until, months later, while fixing the tear, the mother noticed a note inside the stitching that read, "Forever on watch, my baby bear." After attending the funeral of a grandfather he had never met, a 6-year-old boy began drawing intricate sketches of him. These illustrations depicted the elder wearing clothing he was known to have worn when he was younger, down to even his favorite hat, details the boy couldn't have possibly known. As the days passed, the number of sketches increased, and the grandfather's expression in the drawings became increasingly distressed and frustrated. Until one morning, the boy revealed, "In a dream, Grandpa told me he's missing something very special to him." Initially creeped out and puzzled, the family eventually deduced the meaning of this statement. And after searching through the grandfather's old belongings, they found his favorite and most cherished hat, the one from the drawing. And once they finally returned the hat to the grandfather's grave, the boy's eerie sketches and seeming connection to his estranged grandfather ceased. During relentless downpours of rain, a 4-year-old would stand by her window, laughing hysterically at something outside. "The man in the rain tells the best jokes," she would exclaim while not breaking her gaze from what was ever outside the window. And this creepy stunt went on for weeks, anytime it stormed, until one quiet, rainless night, she sadly looked out the window, and when questioned what was wrong, she whispered in an almost scared hush, "The funny rain man says he has to leave. The others have found him." A 4-year-old boy in London would often reminisce about playing with his friend from long, long ago. He'd say, "Me and Tommy hid from the big loud airplanes behind Mrs. Clark's shop. She gave us yummy sugar squares." His mother, both curious and unnerved, decided to delve into some old-time war records of London. She soon unearthed some vintage photographs from a historical website capturing the facade of a Mrs. Clark's storefront from before and after the war's bombings. And when shown the photos with wide eyes, the little boy immediately pointed to the photograph, saying, "That's it, me and Tommy played right over there. Before the big boom." While sifting through her dress-up box, the 4-year-old excitedly held up a blue gown. "Look, Mommy, I want to wear this, like Miss Amelia." Her mother, puzzled, responded, "Who's Miss Amelia?" The little girl, who would often hum old-timey tunes and describe dancing and playing with all the different horses, said, "Miss Amelia taught me this dance," she'd explain while swaying back and forth in her blue dress. But who was Miss Amelia? The answer would finally come during a family trip to a local history museum. Displayed prominently was a photo of a woman in a blue dress, teaching a class of young students. The accompanying plaque read, Amelia Richardson, schoolteacher, 1889. And without hesitation, the little girl pointed and said, "That's her, Mommy, my dancing friend." The mother, taken aback, could only stare in astonishment. The 6-year-old boy looked up at his mom, his eyes filled with a mixture of concern and determination. "Mommy, you really have to watch out on the stairs tomorrow, okay?" he asserted. Brushing it off as just her sweet boy being protective, she just moves on. Until the very next day, as they descended the staircase together, forgetting his words, she lost her footing, tumbling down most of the steps before finally crashing to the hardwood below. The boy, not missing a beat, looked at her from above with an eerie calmness and stated, "See? I knew the stairs were up to something."
Previous coincidences that are hard to believe. A peculiar dream about the number 7 jolted a man from his sleep, imprinting the digit into his mind. Throughout the day, the number then reappeared in unsettling instances. A surprising $7 discount at a local store, an unusual 7 missed calls on his phone, and a random bus numbered 7 crossing his path. Intrigued and slightly unnerved by the reoccurring pattern, he bought a lottery ticket choosing 7 as his fortunate digit. His heart then nearly stopped when he discovered he'd won the jackpot, his dream turning into an exhilarating reality. However, his joy turned into a bone-chilling dread when he stumbled upon a grim pattern. The last 7 winners had all mysteriously met their end within 7 days of their victory. So it's not only in movies. Inheriting an ornate but non-functional grandfather clock from her grandmother, a woman made numerous attempts to revive the timepiece, its hands perpetually stuck at 2:36. One evening, a heart-shattering phone call informed her of her mother's unexpected passing, the time of death eerily coinciding with the time on the dormant clock, 2:36. But then the very next morning, the once motionless clock came to life, ticking away, its hands moving past the chilling hour of 2:36. This blood-curdling synchronization between the clock and her mother's untimely departure turned the timepiece into a haunting memorial of her loss. Upon moving into an antiquated house, a couple stumbled upon a dusty old diary hidden in the attic, a forgotten relic from a woman who lived there in the 1800s. The intriguing find prompted them to delve into its pages, uncovering the tales of the woman's mystifying encounters with an unseen entity residing in that very attic. Now, late into the night, as they absorbed the chilling tales, they were startled by the sudden sound of soft footsteps echoing from above, a sound the house had never emitted before. The uncanny coincidence of reading about a spectral presence and possibly experiencing one themselves shrouded the house in a haunting, uneasy silence. A vivid dream about a horrific car accident at a certain city crossroad shook a man to his core. The striking images of a red sedan and a black pickup truck colliding etched into his mind. He tried to shake off the nightmare, but exactly a week later, while driving down the same crossroad, his heart froze as he witnessed the exact collision from his dream playing out before his eyes. The chilling coincidence of his dream turning into a reality haunted him so profoundly that he felt compelled to avoid that crossroad for the rest of his life. At a local fair, a group of friends decided to challenge a mirror maze, one friend claiming with an eerie confidence that she had dreamt of the maze and could navigate it flawlessly. Dismissing her claim as playful banter, they were stunned when she guided them through the maze without a single wrong turn, her dream turning into a shocking reality. The chilling adventure reached its climax, though, when she abruptly froze before a mirror, her face turning deathly pale before she collapsed unconscious. The mirror she had been fixated upon was the same she had described in her dream, where she had seen her own reflection age horrifyingly in just a few seconds. A school teacher was haunted by a reoccurring dream in which she found herself teaching a specific lesson to a group of students, every detail vividly imprinted on her mind. Years later, she found herself living the dream, standing in a classroom that mirrored her dream down to the last detail, delivering the same lesson to eerily familiar faces. As she took in the uncanny resemblance, a chilling wave of déjà vu washed over her, leaving her pondering the unsettling possibility of her dreams being some sort of portal into the future. On the night of her final performance, a ballerina received an anonymous gift, a pair of exquisitely fitting ballet shoes. shoes, which she then wore on stage. Unbeknownst to her, the shoes were actually once owned by a renowned ballerina who tragically died right after her final performance. The performance was mesmerizing, her graceful movements captivating the audience, her shoes gliding flawlessly on the stage. However, her triumph was short-lived, as she, like the previous owner of the shoes, met a tragic end soon after her curtain call. The eerie coincidence of the ballet shoes and the identical fates of each wearer cast a haunting shadow over the ballet company for years to come. Get ready for a spine-tingling story that makes you question if old-timey ghosts of the past were far scarier and more sinister than those we face today. Because you know what they say about old-timey paranormal stories. They had more spirit. Let's just get into it. We find ourselves back in 1872 Georgia, where the Surrency family, led by respected businessman and local leader Alan Surrency, lived a peaceful life with his wife Susan and their teenage daughter Clementine. Their tranquility, however, was shattered on an ominous June morning in 1872. As Susan was sewing in the parlor, as they did back then, she noticed a pitcher on a nearby table suddenly and violently start rocking back and forth. The water inside sloshed and splashed, and then, as if defying the laws of gravity, the pitcher levitated into the air, hanging suspended for a heart-stopping moment. Then, just as quickly, it crashed down, shattering and drenching the room in a torrent of water. This inexplicable event marked the beginning of a series of terrifying encounters that would change the Surrency family's lives forever. Over the following months, the once peaceful Surrency home transformed into a hotbed of paranormal activity. Heavy wooden doors slammed shut without warning, rattling their frames, while windows shook and shattered underneath the force of an unseen power, sending shards of glass flying across the room. Ordinary household items seemed to be possessed, as if controlled by an invisible force, soaring through the air and crashing to the floor with unnerving precision. It got so far that every time they sat down to eat as a family, their meals were violently thrown into their laps. Neighbors who initially dismissed the tales as exaggerations soon experienced objects in their own homes flying through the air and furniture moving across their floor, seemingly propelled by a supernatural force. Was it the same entity that was tormenting the Surrency family? Is this somehow the Surrency family's fault? Or were the neighbors' fears and imaginations feeding into the phenomena? Desperate for relief, the Surrency family sought shelter with their neighbors and friends, the Pattersons. Even back in the day, having the Pattersons as your neighbors just sound like they're a bunch of good old wholesome people who'll help you out in a pickle. Unfortunately, within days, the sinister forces followed them, manifesting inside the Pattersons' home through even more unexplained object movements and strange noises. Susan Surrency, realizing the danger she had brought upon her friends, decided to return home, successfully luring the supernatural activity and bad vibes away from the probably very wholesome Pattersons household. But what compelled the forces to follow the Surrency family, and why were they so attached to them? As the family tried to escape their haunted life by moving to different locations, whispers of suspicion arose in August of 1874, about 2 years later, when a similar haunting occurred at a house in nearby Bartow County, Georgia. The affected household had recently employed a former Surrency servant named Mary. Remember, this was the post-Civil War South. Servants were still popular. A quiet and unassuming woman, Mary had worked many years as a housemaid for the Surrency family, carrying out daily chores and maintaining the home. However, the frightened and paranoid townsfolk looking for a scapegoat coerced her through questioning and intimidation into confessing her supposed involvement in the events. Despite her admission, the haunting continued, casting doubt on her role in the chilling events. It's almost like she didn't have anything to do with it. So, was Mary an innocent victim of circumstance, or did she somehow hold the key to this chilling phenomenon? I personally say leave Mary alone. I don't think she had anything to do with it. The strange events wouldn't stop harassing the family for years until 1877, when Mr. Surrency finally passed away. Well, I guess it's finally for the poltergeist, because another incident would never be reported by the Surrencys. Numerous theories, however, were proposed to explain the sudden end of the hauntings, including the possibility that it was just a coincidence, or the family's psychological state may have played a role. Or maybe even the events were actually somehow connected to the servant Mary or Mr. Surrency himself, because after his death, whatever the entity was seemed to be satisfied. These theories remain inconclusive, leaving the haunting still unexplained. The Surrency family's chilling encounters with the unknown continues to captivate and bewilder those who hear the story. Will we ever truly know and understand what caused the paranormal events to begin or to cease? Or will the haunting forever remain an old-timey tall tale?
Do you know the top 10 most common serial killer names? Number 10 is Paul, with confirmed 55 known victims in the last 100 years. 18 of them are from Paul John Knowles in the early 1970s. His infectious charisma was his weapon, charming his victims to their unfortunate ends. Brace yourself. It gets worse from here. The name Charles has over 60 victims. Your first thought was probably Charles Manson, one of history's most infamous serial killers, but he was only 9 of the 60 kills. 26 unrelated extra killings did happen by members of his cult, the Manson family. Number 8 is Michael, but not like Michael Myers. He isn't real. Michaels, with their rather average-sounding name, are linked to 95 victims in the last century. The worst Michael is Michael Swango. He was a doctor in the 80s and 90s who brought death instead of healing by injecting poison into his victims, being directly responsible for over 30 deaths. The 7th most common serial killer name is James. It's a name found in many households, meaning one of them is watching right now. Hi, James. The name James connects to over 70 known victims. The king of this awful list of James is James Dale Ritchie in the early 2010s. While only confirmed for 5 brutal murders in Alaska, whispers among investigators suggest James Dale Ritchie's actual kill count might be much, much higher. Have you heard someone's name yet that you wish you had it? No? Let's keep going. With over 50 victims to its name, William comes in 6th. The most infamous and awful of them all is William Bonin. He didn't just murder people, he lured, tortured, sexually assaulted, and took the lives of at least 21 young men in 1979 alone. His method? Using his van to trap unsuspecting hitchhikers. So if you ever wondered why hitchhiking died out, it's because of evil men named William. All of them. The 5th most common name for a serial killer is Robert, responsible for over 90 victims. By far the worst Robert is Robert Pickton, with at least 49 kills in the 1990s. He lured vulnerable women with the promises of money or drugs, only to turn them into his next victims, making his farm a graveyard of lost souls. Number 4 on this list is Dick, better known by the name Richard. This regal-sounding name is tainted with over 85 victims. The biggest dick of them all is Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker. With 13 victims directly to his name in 1984, his whole modus operandi involved breaking into homes, making residents of Los Angeles live in perpetual fear. Like a dick! The 3rd most common serial killer name is straight from the Old Testament. David. Being a biblical name, one might assume some level of godliness to follow, but no. Unfortunately, over 65 victims have been linked to the name David. The most notorious David was David Berkowitz, or as many remember him, the son of Sam. He terrorized New York City in 1976 with his .44 caliber revolver, claiming 6 lives and attributing his actions to demonic influences. Because of course he did. David. This next name I was genuinely shocked by. With a victim count of over 90, the name Gary, of all names, should start to strike fear into you. The worst Gary was Gary Ridgway, known as the infamous Green River Killer, responsible for the deaths of at least 49 women from the 1980s to the early 2000s. His reign of terror left a scar on the communities of the Pacific Northwest that still lingers to this day. Gary did this? And finally, the most common name for a serial killer, with over 110 victims. Let me know if you guessed this right. Drumroll, please. John. This in reality is a numbers game, since John is one of the most common male names in the world, and I don't know if y'all noticed, but every name on this list belonged to a man. The worst John of them all, and arguably the worst serial killer period, John Wayne Gacy. You already likely know the killer clown who was responsible for 33 men's deaths. So if you meet someone with one of these names, run. And if you yourself have one of these names, try your best not to kill anybody.
More scary ghost moments caught on camera. Let's see how scary they really are. Ghost pushes baby over. Okay, watch the video. Oh! Yeah, that wasn't a normal kid falling over. Ghost kitty vanishes on camera. It's a black cat, too. That could be a camera distortion, right? What's this? Ghost caught on camera walking through traffic. Okay, yeah, it's gotta be either a camera distortion, right? Like 2 things overlaid over each other? Otherwise, that's bizarre. Ghost Rider. Okay, which way are we looking? Let's just say it again. I kind of heard it. Whoa, spontaneously smashing.
You think ghosts just get mad in their dimension and like, what is this? Bam! And then they don't realize that other people can see it? Man disappears into thin air. Yeah, he looks a little wispy.
Weird.
And he's gone. I'm gonna stick with the camera theory. Oh, kitty. Teleporting cat. Okay, bet. He's there. Or she. In. Is that a frame? Could be a cut. It could be a cut right there. Where's the cat pop up? Where? Okay, I mean, that definitely could have been a cut. That one, I don't believe that one, but it's a cute kitty. Oh, I see a little specter ball going through. Ooh. That was a big one. Oh, there's more. Just walking around. Hang out. You gonna sit on the couch? I think they just laid on the couch. Oh, I bet everything in London and Europe is just haunted. Where are we looking? Down the tunnel? Oh, that actually doesn't even look like a ghost. That looks scarier. Like a skinwalker. Oh, what is that on the left? On the left. That gives me Skinwalker vibes. That gives me Skinwalker vibes. The chills have set in. Oh god, I don't like the way it's moving. Oh, that's a lot of light bulbs to change. If you see two girls coming out down the hall, run. It's almost kind of like a rave. Like this leads you to the rave, you know? This is right when you're peaking. Pushed by an invisible hand. I believe that to be the ghost who probably passed away in that chair and didn't want to get out of the chair and is still in the chair. Just because you're a ghost doesn't mean you want to walk everywhere, right? Ghost child runs through car park. Ghost children, it just makes me more sad and more scared. Spooky chair. Yeah, this kind of stuff. I've actually seen chairs move when they show. Oh, another one. See, if I saw two chairs move, then I'd be freaked. Oh, at the same time. Maybe they have strings. Maybe it's strings. Or maybe everything we know about reality is not true. They're still moving. Oh, third one's involved. Okay. Could be strings. I don't know. I'm going to say strings for my own sanity.